first one in a series of Ecofêtes inspiration talks, which is really because I'm starting a sustainable business and I'm working with sustainable food, sustainable fashion, and sustainable events. I really wanted to start talking to people who've been trailblazers like Joe.
Thank you very much.
In all areas of sustainability and basically anything that's been a pioneering, I mean, years before it was even called organic, you were interested in food and just the development and how it made you well. Yes. Anyway, basically Joe has been a pioneer in organic food probably since the 90s.
Yes, since 91 actually.
Founded also Joe Ward Organics, one of the first beauty brands that actually was an upmarket beauty brand that was purely organic. And also you've been at the forefront of championing green fashion, and you've worked a lot with Safia Mini and a lot with People Tree. So you basically have an all-round knowledge of the last 20 years.
Yes, oh my God, is it that long?
So what made you, Joe, little Joe as a child, how did you eat? What was your upbringing like as far as things being green are concerned?
Well, back then, I suppose, my mother always cooked. We didn't eat processed food. That sort of came along in the 70s. And I remember her going to the supermarket and just coming out with like boxes in a trolley of all frozen and processed food. But we didn't know any better. But as a child, I ate natural food. My mum was from South Africa, and so she planted things like avocado trees in the garden, you know, where nobody else had had an avocado. So, and by her cooking, I grew up to cook, you know. And so for me, cooking was just part of life. By the time I was 9, I could cook a roast dinner.
So that's quite an interesting thing. So people, it's one of the things that actually my grandmother said, is that before she passed away, when everything was organic, when things were first organic, people were practically suspicious.
Well, it's been organic forever.
It's been, exactly, but then people...
But only since the 70s, when it came to, you know, they decided they had all this spray, and they started spraying fields because they realised it killed the bugs. They didn't have to worry about them anymore. So it changed then in the 70s, along with GMO, oh yeah, I did say it right. Yeah. Along with that, it all started to change, and the big manufacturers started to make processed food. And that's where all the problems really started, because you then got corn syrup, which was invented in Japan, which is made from corn, obviously, but it's GMO. And so now it's in everything from children's sweets to cakes to everything, and I think it's highly addictive and very bad for us.
Exactly. So in fact, that's something that she was saying, that the term organic, which people, when it was in the supermarket even 15 years ago, people were slightly suspicious of,
when it's been the most natural food since time began.
Exactly. It was just going back to basic home cooking. So you had that heritage anyway. You were growing up on fresh food.
But in the 70s, I started, you know, having pizzas and all that stuff that was out there, and then I went and then I met my ex-husband, and it was all about rock and roll. So I don't think I ate actually anything then. So I didn't eat for about 10 years.
So what made you start your whole journey into finding out about the actual benefits of organic food and what it actually was? Something when you were...
So I got ill in 1990, and I was misdiagnosed with Crohn's disease. So they put me on steroids. Actually, it was 1989, I think, end of 1989. And they put me on steroids, and sort of you blow up like a balloon, and my skin was really terrible. And I can actually say they took my soul away, because I didn't feel like me. I just wasn't me anymore. And I went on tour, just carried on, and then I had some article in the newspaper, and I got hundreds of letters from people with Crohn's disease. And then there was this one letter I picked up, because I read them. They sent them all over to me, and I read them all. And this one letter said, "Hi Joe," it was mad writing, it was really mad writing. I could hardly understand what he's saying. He said, "Come and see me, I'm a herbalist, and I will put your Crohn's disease into remission for life." I thought, what? And I literally got in my car and drove down to Hastings, And there was his house, and it was called Shangri-La. I thought, wow, I'm here. So he was an old boy, and he sat me down, and he said, what do you eat? I thought, what's he talking about? What do I eat? And he said, I need to know everything you eat. So I started saying, well, we have McDonald's with the kids, and then I get them pizza. I cook on a Sunday. And he just wanted to know everything. And then he started talking to me about food, processed food, how it affects our immune system, how the chemicals in the food break down our immune system, and whatever we're weakest to will affect us and get ill from. And the sugars, he talked about the sugars. And in that afternoon, he changed my life forever. I left there, I went home, and I said, right, everything's going to be organic. But there was nothing organic around, and I was searching all the time. And then I came across this woman who had an organic farm down in Devon, and she said she comes to London once a week. She'd bring me a box of food. So that's how it started. And then I dug a little vegetable garden in my garden, and I started eating the cleanest food I could. I cut out all sugars, I cut out all dairy, never have dairy since.
And you felt better?
Yeah.
And
then
you think it cured your...
No, what happened, I started to feel really great, and I was like, yes, I'm back. Went to see my friend in the country, and suddenly got these terrible pains in my stomach. They rushed me into hospital, they gave me exploratory surgery, and they found out I had a perforated appendix for 2 years. They said it was but if I hadn't cleaned out my system, I'd have never known.
Could have killed you.
And they said it would have killed me.
So diet, even for that. I mean, but now obviously
cleaned
we
out
know
my
it's
system.
irrelevant.
Yeah. So, and I laid in hospital after my operation, and I said, from this day onwards, I am going to be an organic girl. And I'm the same now. I'm still the same.
But then you took it further than that. This is the bit I love that I don't think a lot of people know about your sort of brilliant rock and roll come health history, that you started taking it on tour. Joe actually had a little campaign, didn't you, for organic food backstage on tour with the Stones.
And so one dish would always be an organic dish backstage, which was just for me, really. And then I grew so many fantastic organic potatoes at our house in Ireland, I could not leave them. So I filled a suitcase with them, and I took them to France, to the show in France, and I put a big sign, Joe's Organic Potatoes. They boiled up, and they were new potatoes. And I was thinking, as we were going across the border, what if I get stopped?
For illegal potatoes, not illegal substances.
You can't bring those into this country. Anyway, so I...
Didn't you have your own stove as well? I love this story.
Then I was so obsessed with it all that I would take a small suitcase with a 2-ring burner and a saucepan, and I would cook simple dishes on the road. And then one day, the burner burnt through the plastic of the suitcase, and I thought, oops, maybe I ought to get this made properly. So I designed a portable stove in a flight case, had 3 drawers each side. It opened up like that. It had a burner that went, that you put, take your saucepan off and it goes cold.
You should sell those now. Sounds great.
It was great. I loved, and I stuck stickers all over it from everywhere. And so I'd check into a hotel, check into the Ritz-Carlton, and then I'd whip out to the nearest Whole Foods in America, buy my food, come back.
Get your potatoes.
Dinner's ready, cook up dinner, everything I could do on a 2-burner stove. Actually, I made a mincemeat stew once by cooking everything separately and then adding them all together at the end.
So what were people's attitudes to you doing that then? Did they think you were like this crazy, nutty woman? Or
yes.
What? Yeah, okay.
Keith actually said to me, the trouble with you, darling, is you're addicted to organic food. I said, coming from you, that's a great one, Keith. yeah, they all thought I was mad, and my family actually got really fed up with me because everything I was like, oh, this is organic, that's organic, this is organic macaroni cheese, and then I was banned from saying the O word.
So do you think people were slightly saying before, practically suspicious of the term? That time, you're talking about 15 years ago still. I think people still didn't really know what it meant.
I would say you have to understand, all the other food should be, say, chemical food, unorganic food, and this food is the most natural food in the world. And, they got it wrong. They got it wrong completely.
So you're this crazy woman with this new weird organic label. Do you feel that those attitudes have changed significantly only recently? Because you're talking about 20 years ago, you've been championing organic food.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going into Tesco and saying, can I get organic butter? And they were saying, what? And now you go into Tesco, you can get anything you want that's organic. But back then, in the mid-90s, it was just not heard of. I remember going to America, and my friend said to me, Jo, I've got to take you to this shop. You're going to love it. And she took me to Mrs. Gucci's organic supermarket, and it was like I had gone to heaven. Mm-hmm. And I bought back from there, filled a box and bought back all the stuff from there. But now it's just everywhere, it's just everywhere.
And do you think because you're equally passionate about cruelty-free beauty, as I said at the beginning, and also about workers' rights and everything. I mean, my thinking is that it has to be a circular way of living now, not just a circular economy, circular business. That you have to be kind to people, be kind to the planet. Otherwise, everyone's going to perish. And basically, it has to be just a general good, I think, goodwill feeling towards everything from the planet, food to people. Yes. And do you feel that those things, that people are understanding that cohesion is really important?
Now they're understanding a lot better. I mean, in 50 years, we've destroyed our planet that we're living on. And I truly believe a simple way to turn things back is by changing your diet, because you create that demand. You clean up the rivers because they're not putting chemicals on the land. You clean up you clean up everything by just eating organic food because you're creating that demand.
And you're putting simple power into your hands.
And you're looking after, I mean, our health is in our hands, by what we eat, with what we eat,
And then what made you start the beauty brand as well, the cruelty-free beauty brand, the organic beauty brand?
Once my obsession with food became so huge, I suddenly thought one day when I was looking at some products, I thought, but what is in here? What is in here? Because somebody said what you put on your skin goes straight into your bloodstream. And at least when you eat, you've got the acids to break down the chemicals. But what you put on your skin doesn't. It goes. You've just got to think of a Nicorette patch or HRT patch, how that goes straight into your system. And so I started thinking, oh my God, what are in cosmetics? And I found a book called What's in Your Cosmetics, something like that. And I read it and I thought, Jesus Christ, this is terrible. I need to be, if I'm an organic girl, I need to be organic the whole way. So my brother gave me a book called The Fragrant Pharmacy, where I then ordered all these oils and turned my bathroom into a lab and started making up oils for different friends of mine. And then another friend said, Jo, why don't you do it properly? I went, nah. And I thought, yeah, why don't I do it properly? So that's how it started. It took me a lot longer than I thought. I thought I'd have it out in 6 months, but it was like 2 years.
But how long ago was that now?
That was 2004 I launched it.
And along the way with all the people you've met, and obviously your life was quite varied on tour, and all the people you met when you were married to Ronnie, who did you find that was kind of drawn to what you were doing? Were there people, did you feel that there was a movement gathering pace as you went on through years? Did people join in? Did they become more interested?
Yeah, well, within the band, Patty, Keith's wife.
Yeah. Just everywhere you met going around the world.
Yeah, but then I started meeting people like, brain's gone. I met Safia, I met Jarvis Smith, who is that does the P Awards. I started meeting different people, and I think you do when you put out that vibe, you start meeting people with the same thought as you. So I know a whole load of organic nuts.
Organic nuts, you're not the only one. Yeah. And how do you think, just on a positive note, because I think I was talking about this earlier with Laura, my daughter, it's today freakishly hot, and it's like you can't get away from the fact that there's got to be something, it's got to be something related to global warming. Climate change does exist, and you do need to think for the next generation. Is it still possible to turn it back? We've got to hope that there is. And for all the research you've read, everything you've looked into over the last 20 years, do you feel there's still a potential?
Still hope.
Yeah, to make things right,
I hope so. I think that if we all change the way, because not only if we change the way we eat and change what we put on our skin, and we demand that, and we don't, we take a stand. We need to take our stand for our children and our children's children. And I think we can, because nature is so powerful, and I'm sure we can turn it around. I mean, I met these great guys that I walked in a show with the other day that make clothes they made these fantastic, it's the second time I've walked in the show, and they made these fantastic dresses out of the bottles they've collected from the River Thames, and they turn it into a cloth like a polyester. And then their dream is to once you finish wearing it, you take it back, the thread is remade from those clothes, and they make something different. So it's a constant circle like that.
It was quite like a Catherine Hamnett kind of parachute fabric, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was really incredible, yeah.
So they're people, inventive people who are thinking outside the box, are coming up with more and more ideas and to change the way we are.
So you think there's a positive note in that?
Yes, I hope so. I mean, my son Ty has this charity called Project Zero, and it's all about saving the ocean and trying to have it protected. So in the next few years, they want to get 40% of the ocean protected, and that way we know we're safe, because every second breath we take comes from our ocean, and without our ocean being clean, we're all going to just perish and die, There won't be any future for our children. And then anybody says to me, oh, Red Nose Day is coming up, I say, you know what we should be doing? We should be fighting for a better planet. That's what we should be doing.
That's true, because we won't be dealing with any diseases
if we're all dead. Yeah, we won't be dealing with anything if we're all gone.
Exactly. I mean, on that note though as well, that things have changed, you're saying. You do think there's hope if everyone joins in. And as we said originally, is it actually at least more fashionable now? You're not the crazy woman, I think that, of course it's a bit annoying that you can tell that, even a few years ago, the thing about, when Justin had a zero waste restaurant with basically straws, concentrating on having paper straws and not using any plastic. It was a novelty even then, not that long ago. Yeah. And now everyone has their straws. Everyone's obsessed with their straws. But
plastic's going to be like cigarettes soon, I'm sure.
I hope so.
Yes.
But then they'll give it to you in a plastic cup still. So they'll very proudly, like we went into a pub in Primrose Hill, and these people very proudly show their sort of sustainable straw that's metal, and they put it in a plastic cup. Mm-hmm. So I think there's still, a long way to go.
Yeah, I think there's a long way to go. I went and bought a coconut the other day that had plastic wrapped around it. Why do they need to do that?
The apples you get in America, where they just have
it's crazy.
Even though they have a natural skin, they're surrounded by plastic. So I think that it has just become fashionable, which is not a bad thing, because
it's a really good thing that it becomes fashionable. Because if it's fashionable to eat clean, then we will change the way we are better. Easier.
So you think it is more it is acceptable, more rock and roll.
Organic is the new rock and roll. Yes,
exactly. Finally, to a generation.
Yeah.
And then what do you have planned next? You've also written books, and you're writing books as well at the same time as running two businesses, basically.
Yes. Well, actually, I'm doing a podcast, which is called, and it's not out yet. It's Joe's Alien Nation. I'm very proud of that, which I interview people that believe in aliens. Then I'm just about to finish my book, my rock and roll scrapbook, be coming out in September. And I'm working on a new face range
Just multitasking. So what would you say, just coming away from everything we discussed, what do you think is just a couple of things that people can do just to be positive about, making a little change to stop us all perishing forever?
Health-wise, I think we should abandon all milk.
Okay.
I think it's really important, especially for women, because it contains so many hormones. I think it disrupts the hormones in our bodies. So I think milk is terrible. So by buying nut milks, it's just as good.
And that's not just because of the farming, not just because of the way it's farmed. Do you think it's also?
I think it's
just bad for you.
We have too much sugar in our diets, too much dairy, and I think it's very bad for us.
So you think
as
eliminating
all humans
dairy in a diet is really good,
and cut down on sugar. And as mothers, I think we have to lead the way, because I don't think the men would do it. Sorry, guys.
Okay, it's like I'm throwing the gauntlet out there. So, and so, do you see, just to sort of wrap up, do you see, thinking about, little you who was eating natural food just because we didn't need the term organic because everything was organically grown anyway, and now you see Maggie, your granddaughter, years later, do you think that there is a generation that are finally going to have that message ingrained into them, by the time they're at school?
Yeah, but you see, the weird thing is that some people get it and some people don't. I have an older son who still thinks that I'm taking it to the extreme, and he comes over to my house, he opens the fridge and says, "You haven't got anything decent in your fridge." I said, "Yes, I have. That's decent. That's real food. What you eat is rubbish."
What would he?
But he feeds his family. The kids can have a Coca-Cola, and they've got drawers full of crisps and stuff like that. And their children are always ill. Now Leah gives her kids an organic diet. She's never vaccinated them. They are grounded. They are healthy. If they get ill, it's over like that. Totally different. Totally. Jamie's children have got learning difficulties. Leah's have none. It's just such a huge difference I see in the two lots of grandchildren.
I mean, do you think even the vaccination issue, though, is going a bit too far?
Yes, I definitely think vaccinations
balance of...
lots of people don't agree with me, but my ex-daughter-in-law, Tilly, didn't vaccinate her children at all, and they are really, really healthy. What they have in vaccinations now is so many other things. You've got mercury, aluminium, you've got monkey gene, you've got all sorts of things. They fill up the vaccination for I don't know why. So luckily for me, I didn't vaccinate my children because I was on the road and never got round to it.
Completely different reason. I love that.
That was before I knew. I wouldn't have done it. I wouldn't have done it now, but I'm glad I didn't do it. I forgot then.
Because you forgot. Correct. But I think the most important thing is that there's a choice these days, because you could be really demonised if you didn't, even when
in America
my
they demonise them.
They do, yeah. I mean, you're in trouble at school. I think it's most importantly, people have a choice now in the way that they live and the way that
I think you feed your child a healthy diet. I don't think you need to vaccinate, but I mean, I know I'd be slammed down with that if I ever said that in public. I think I might anyway, just to be a rebel. Oh yes, I have.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Mummy. It's very nice talking to you. Oh, and one last thing, sorry, I've got to go into, you just jogged my memory, is you're very passionate about not shopping on the high street, and you were telling me about this years before it became not fashionable, but kind of, I think just everyone's been exposed to the sort of horrors of, mass-produced factories and the treatment of workers. And you were telling me about this years ago. Is that another really important thing that you've seemed to have stuck by before everyone else?
Because I went to Bangladesh in 2008 or 9, something like that, and I went to where the workers are paid minimum amount, saw the conditions that they work in, and then talked to the women who. Oh, they treat them so badly. And all the chemicals that they use on one T-shirt, on one pair of jeans, they use tons of water. I don't know, it's just... And then there's so many clothes out there that need to be loved and reworn, yeah. Exactly. And I think this thing we've got now where we're buying clothes all the time, the kids are buying T-shirts, going into H&M and another T-shirt, or whatever, It's just gone too mad. We're not even wearing out our clothes.
Exactly, but I think finally that has changed, and what used to be called
a huge up
second-hand. The beauty of the term vintage has made it romantic.
Yes.
And suddenly there's something kind of magical and sort of
I love
mysterious.
finding a vintage dress.
But that was genius, that in a way, because it's suddenly become completely acceptable to a whole generation,
Yes.
and very crucially so, because it's a joy, and you're sort of proud to rewear something.
Yes. I think that's important, and to buy something that is going to last a long time rather than 5 minutes. A really cool, beautiful jacket that you can wear for years, I think is really important.
Made by someone who's their
and
crafts
made
have
in
been
England, especially. You
Yeah.
know, when it's made in England, I love anything made in England. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very much, darling. Unless anyone else has got any more questions.
Right, let's change the planet.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, darling.